Hey, everybody, welcome into this magic room that is the Zoom room that is called the conversation room. That is used to be 50 conversations with 50 strangers, but in a week and a half into the process, it couldn't be that anymore because there were way more people that wanted to talk than 50. And so then it became 50 more conversations, then it became conversations with strangers. I sort of think it's just a conversation room. So I love what's going on here. I love the fact that every day I show up, excuse me, that every day I show up and I see a different face in this room, sometimes as often as 10 times a day. People seem enamored with this idea of talking to somebody they don't know. But we have to be completely transparent. The woman in the room today with me, I don't know her, but I feel like I know her because she has been so supportive of so many posts that I've put out, and she has liked things on Facebook and Instagram, and I just feel so honored to have somebody who has taken the time to not only like what I've said, but to take the time to make a comment or to just smile face or whatever, and I want you to know, Lynn, you've touched me, so I appreciate it. I'm so happy you're here, and I'm so happy to meet you in virtual person, right?
Honored
Um,
to be here.
Thank you so very much. I do have to say the show is being sponsored by the Mosaic. The Mosaic is a book that I wrote about. It's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asked the adults where his parents went, they told him they went to a place called heaven. And so he immediately sets out in search of the place called heaven. But the people he meets along the way are not the people you would imagine him to meet. They're not the rabbis and the priests and the ministers and the swamis and the gurus or the medicine women or the Aborigines elders. He meets common ordinary people. He meets the road worker and the trash man, the blind woman and the homeless guy. And he wonders, why am I meeting these people of all people? These people do not seem like the people that have tickets to heaven and will show me how to get to heaven. But he says, I'm here with them. Why don't I just sit with them and listen? And when he listens to them tell their story, what he realizes is the person he originally saw when he walked up to him isn't at all the person that they are now that he's heard their story. And when it happens over and over and over and over and over again, what he realizes is, gosh, maybe I don't see anything the way it is. Maybe everything I see is convoluted by the way I see the world rather than the world the way it is. And I wonder what I would see if I could see the world without my convolution. At that moment, he looks over to his right and he sees a monk who unzips the sky and invites him to walk into a parallel reality with him. And it's there he meets the wise one who's the keeper of the mosaic. That's the trailer for the book. If it sounds exciting to you, I invite you please to pick it up either on my website or at Amazon. If it doesn't sound exciting to you, then at least we fulfilled the obligation of to our sponsor to talk about the mosaic. And now we're done with that. Now I have the pleasure of having a conversation with someone who I am so thankful for all her support. Lynn Bagdasian, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
And I got your name right?
You did. Well done.
Okay, I love it. You're a good teacher. Um, how are you?
I'm absolutely wonderful.
I love that. And I want to just ask one more time because I know that you are wonderful and I know we've had a little conversation in the green room, but there's a lot going on in our world today. There's a pandemic going on that is keeping us from seeing people, keeping us from hugging people I know in my own life. I have a developmentally delayed daughter and she lives in a group home. And it was 6 months. I hadn't seen her for six
Wow.
months. We finally got to see her the other day and we spent a few hours with her. But that's been so hard because she wants so badly to come home.
Oh,
Um, and I know that just rips at my soul. we also have a civil rights movement that's going on that, I thought we had answered when I was growing up in the 60s, and we haven't answered it because it's here again in full focus. We have
Right.
a women's rights movement, where women are standing up and saying we don't accept the way we've been treating. We're not just pieces of sexual pleasure for you. We want to be received and understood. We have a lot of our societal institutions that seem like they're decaying and falling down. We're really looking at education, at medicine, at our churches and synagogues.
Right.
How are you doing with all that?
I think it's a moment to moment thing. I try to see the light in it all. I try to see it all as opportunities for learning and growing. It talking about the pandemic, let's start there. I'm a hugger
Yeah,
and I've been known to hug strangers in my time at Target or wherever I am. I connect with people anywhere. I love, like you, having conversations with strangers. And it's been really hard not to hug people.
yeah,
This virtual hug, elbow bumping, toe tapping thing, it's really not working for me, but I have to make the best of it.
yeah.
So that I miss, but I do use this as an opportunity to try to bring kindness and light to those around me, whether it's on the grocery store trip or through social media. I try to be the light. I feel like that's my purpose.
Well, you're doing a great job because I am 3,000 miles away from you, and I felt it in every post, in every like that you did, and in just doing that. Like, tell me what you feel about this, because like I could feel you even though you were 3,000 miles away, even though we never spoke, even though we never talked to each other, even though we never met each other, even though we never hugged each other. I could still feel you through
I
your through.
Yes, I
Tell
feel
me.
I feel the connection, and I do that. I related to your book, The Mosaic, because I felt like I was I was the characters in the book. I felt like I've met the characters in the book. I felt like this person gets it, and I don't come across that very often. I can, sometimes people think it's like out there or
Right.
whatever. And I feel like it's just being genuinely, authentically connected with people. When I say to someone, how are you? I mean, how are you? I don't just
Yeah.
say it for casual conversation. I really want to know, how are you? And I feel like with you being 3,000 miles away, you mean it when you say it.
Yeah.
And I feel that. Distance doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so I want to invite the reader into the listener. I'm sorry, I'm calling reader, but listener into this, and just ask people, what do you believe about distance and time and space? Do you believe that it's possible that somebody like Lynn and I could feel so deeply connected to each other, having never seen each other, met each other, heard each other, but just from the fact that we've read something that someone else has that they've done, or in my case, it wasn't even that I read so much of what she wrote. I just felt so uplifted and supported by her constantly saying how much she liked what I was doing or loved what I was doing. Do you believe those connections are possible? And if so, how does those things happen for you? Do you believe energy exists so strongly that you can feel it across time and space? And if so, what is the energy that you're putting out into the world that people are feeling? It's just interesting to see, right? Beautiful.
Absolutely. And this brings me back to a time that I shared with my grandfather before his passing when he was in the hospital. He was intubated, so he couldn't talk. And it was the nurse, myself, and my aunt in the room. And I felt like he wanted to say something, but he couldn't say something. So I held his hand and I said, do you want me to pray with you? And he squeezed me and, his eyes lit up. And let me just tell you, this moment changed my life forever.
Wow.
I prayed with him, and something transcended. I don't know if I experienced what he was experiencing or if it was heaven. I don't know what it was, but I can tell you this. It was an out of life experience, out of body, light, complete light. The music, and it's not, I can't even explain to you the sound. Music doesn't even do it justice, because it was this most beautiful sound. And I just felt a pure joy, like an uplifting, pure joy that I've never experienced in my life. And I'll probably never experience again, maybe until the day that I die, I don't know. But in that moment, it was validation for me that there is way more to life than what we think is here. And so it probably lasted seconds. It felt like an eternity, all in one. And my life changed. Like, I just knew that there was so much more to life. And so from that day on, I became a volunteer for hospice. I thought, helping people transition. I try to help people, deal with grief. And like I say, bring the light, because I experienced the light. So I want to bring the light, and whatever way that is for whoever it is. And I think it's different for each person that we meet.
I love that. Where is that kindness in your heart come from? Have you always been that way, or is it something that's developed over time? Where does that come from?
I think I've always had a genuine kindness in me, although I've been through a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's gotten me to want to help others not have to experience the pain that I've experienced in my lifetime.
Yeah. So again, for those of you who are listening, how do you deal with all the stuff that you've gone through? Do you get bitter about it? Do you get angry about it? Or does it somehow allow you to touch into a place of kindness in you that makes you want to never have anybody else have to feel what you've gone through? And so you are available for them to help them through that process. By the way, Lynn told me this is the first time she's ever done something like this. And I think she's doing pretty darn well. What do you think? Put comments below.
Why, thank you.
If you would. What's important to you, Lynn?
My family, my friends, my health, being of service to other people, bringing light. Again, it all goes back to the light. That's important to me. It's important to me to help other people find their joy, find their light, be their authentic self. That's important.
Did someone help you find your joy and your light when you were going through that stuff? Why is that so important to you?
Yes, along the way, the answer is definitely yes. Right out of high school, my house burned down, and I was in it when a stranger was banging on the door. I was the only one at home at the time, and he's get out of the house. I was in my pajamas, really just a t-shirt at the time. It was February. I ran out of the house, and shortly after that, the whole thing went up in flames. So I was lucky and blessed to be alive. So yes, that person helped me, but then the kindness of strangers, the neighbors that came and brought me a blanket, that brought me shoes to wear, the friend that gave me a place to stay and gave my mother a place to stay. We all kind of went our separate ways right after, to temporarily, but the kindness of strangers.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And when she says the house burnt down and it was February, she's not in Miami Beach. She's up in the northeast U.S. where it's cold in February.
Where it's really cold in February.
So I think I know, but what makes you happy?
Other people being happy makes me happy. Seeing other people enjoy makes me happy.
So I love that. But now imagine you were locked in a room and you didn't have access to anybody. Would you be unhappy then?
No. Well, it all depends. I would have conversations with my God So I don't think I would be alone. Maybe I would feel lonely at times because I would miss, like I said, the connection with other people,
Yeah.
but I have my connection with my God. So
So would it be fair to say that the happiness that you feel comes from a connection to something bigger than yourself also?
absolutely.
Talk
Yes.
about that. What is your connection there? Because it obviously plays a beautifully big role in your life. If you feel comfortable, will you talk
Yes,
about what that is?
absolutely. So like I mean, I was raised Catholic, but I consider myself more of a spiritual person. And especially I think since that day with that experience with my grandfather,
Yeah.
um, the connection, it like since that day also, my mother had a surgery and she died and they brought her back.
Wow.
And since so gratitude. So the day that happened, like I pledged that I would be grateful and live in gratitude every day of my life. So that also plays a part, but grateful to my God. So each day I begin my day with counting my blessings, being grateful, and asking God to help me do his work his way.
I love
And
that.
I just live my life that way.
Where did you develop such a personal relationship with God? Because so many people have a relationship with God, but they go to their churches or they go to their synagogues or they go to wherever they go. And they spend their time telling God how great that He is, how wonderful He is, how magnanimous He is. But even though they say they have a personal relationship, you don't feel the personality of that
Right.
relationship.
Right.
Where did that personal relationship for you come from? How did it happen?
I feel like it's been a combination of times when I've been in such despair and he's come to me and carried me through.
Beautiful. Beautiful,
I've had a
beautiful.
lot of, say, tragic things. And when I look at it, the power of forgiveness, I feel like I wouldn't be able to do those things on my own. I feel like it's my God that helped me get
Yeah.
there.
I love because sometimes in the course of the days that I live, people come to me and ask me questions. And they just one of the things that's pretty prevalent right now is people say to me, I just don't feel good enough. I don't feel enough. And most people have a very different answer than I have. I say you should celebrate that. That is so beautiful.
Right.
Because if you don't feel enough, then let something come through you that is enough. And uh,
Absolutely.
and invite that presence in because the presence of the power of God can do everything for us, right? So
Absolutely.
when you don't feel good enough, that's a great sign to give your steering wheel over to the one that's sitting next to you
Yes,
and let and let her drive the car, right?
that's
Uh,
exactly right.
and I love that, and I love that you feel that, and I love that we don't know each other, but we share that to you. If money weren't important, what would you do?
It's funny that you should say that because I know money gets us our necessities and whatnot, but to me, it's not like I don't value money. I don't think as much as other people value money. To me, I value relationships, and so what I do, I don't do it for the money. I do it because I want to spread the light and bring the joy, and the money is just the bonus part of it.
How is it possible we're so similar and never met? Right? I love that. I really do. Let me change it around a little bit, make it a little fun. You have to know I
Okay.
suck. I suck at lightning rounds, but the first few questions we'll get through, and
Oh,
then
right, right.
I'm going to be a little more curious. So
Okay.
that's why I'm not so good at. Are you a dog or a cat person?
Dog,
Coffee or tea?
both.
Okay.
And I was always a tea person until this pandemic. I started drinking coffee.
Would would you say you live your life more like a conservative or like a liberal?
Right smack in the middle.
Right smack in the middle. I'm interested at how many people in this time of mass separation between conservative and liberalism answer me. I'm right in the middle, and how just politically neither party is catching that drift.
Right.
Right? It's so interesting.
It's so interesting. And I say this to my family every day, like, how? Like, why can't they see that
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be one way or the other? Can't we all just meet in the middle, people?
Yeah, I love that. Would you say you're shy or outgoing?
I believe I'm outgoing, although that didn't happen until my adulthood. I was shy when I even talked to my own family growing up as a
Wow.
child.
What changed for you? That because I bet there are people that are listening that are pretty shy that would love to be able to be a little more outgoing. What happened for you that allowed you to start to talk to your own family? You talk to people, do things you do.
I do think that the fire brought me out a little bit. And then a lot of the other tragedies that came my way, I think that to use wanting to get that out of me and share what I knew with other people gave me a little more confidence, because I thought if I could just help one person and then they could help one person, and then it could kind of be a ripple effect.
Love that. You've referenced tragedies a few times. Do you care to tell anything more about that?
Absolutely. I'm an open book, like I said. Um, okay, so growing up, I was, my parents were separated. Mind you, it's been 40 years and they're still separated. They're not divorced. They get along very well.
Wow.
Um, However, back then, all my friends' parents were together. So I
Yes.
felt like maybe not enough. I felt like something was missing. I felt like not enough and whatever. So that's childhood. And my mother,
Did you
she
feel?
kind of,
Excuse me. Did you feel it was your fault that they separated?
I didn't feel it then. At least I don't think, I think recently I became aware of maybe I did. And that's where my feelings of not enough
Yeah.
in all those years came from. But just recently started recognizing that. And and then my mother, she kind of was dealing with it her own way of their separation. So basically, I feel like I raised myself. I had an older sister, and she, sort of raised herself. My younger brother went with my dad. So I feel like I was forced to grow up young. And I always felt like I had to protect myself and I had to protect other people around me. And then, then there was the fire, and then I was a victim of rape, but I'm a survivor and a thriver. Forgiveness, I think, is was the biggest thing for me as well. The day that I forgave all these things, my mother for, not being who I needed her to be, but understanding and forgiving her, that's all she could be at that point. Forgiveness is liberating. And if I could give one message to anyone, it would be the power of forgiveness.
I love that. Again, I want listeners to be involved and just jump into the conversation and hear. With the things that Lynn has just mentioned, and there are probably more things going on, but just let's take those that she's mentioned. Would you have the power to be as positive and upbeat and loving and kind? And where does forgiveness play a part in your life? Are you able to forgive? Can you forgive those who have gone before you and hurt you? Are you able to do it today when somebody does something to you? Where do you stand on the forgiveness meter? Do you do a lot of it? Do you do a little of it? And where do you want to stand in it? If I were to ask you, how did you learn to forgive? What would you say?
I think when forgiveness was shown to me, it opened me up to be able, and forgiving myself was the most difficult
Well,
form of forgiveness. And then once I was able to do that, again, that just opened up so much for me. And I just wanted to, what I learned, I want to share with the world.
yeah, yeah.
Because it's life changing.
I
Because
love
you're
that.
held back and stuck in shackles. And then when it's so freeing and liberating when you can let that stuff go.
I love that. What if people get nothing more, and I'm sure you've gotten a lot more already because I have too from this conversation.
Yes.
Just take that one part. Just
Yes.
imagine how freeing forgiveness could be. I know I'm going to think differently about it after our conversation too, so I thank you. Have you always felt like you fit into the world, or have you always felt you're a little bit different?
Yeah, I felt I was a little bit different, I think. Still
Yeah.
feel that way.
I marvel at it every show because I keep expecting people to say I feel like I fit into the world, but 95% of the people, and I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people now, tell me they feel different. And I just think of the brilliance of Steve Jobs when he came out with Apple, and he came out with the creed of Apple. We're for those who don't fit into the world. We're for those who feel different, who are crazy enough to think we can change the world. Those are the
Yes.
ones that will, right?
Yes.
Um, it, and I thought when I first heard it, what a crazy way to market yourself, because the people that don't fit in, it's got to be such a small group because the majority of people do fit in. But
Right.
I don't think that's true. I think he
I
was
don't believe
brilliant.
that's true.
Yeah. What a brilliant campaign he came into to discover that people all feel that they're different in the world that is. Why do you think we all try to fit into a world that nobody fits into?
Interesting question. I don't know so much that well, I think comparison has stuff to do with it, and I believe comparison is the thief of joy. Um, and the way that I keep going back to your mosaic, because that's brilliant, and this is how I feel. I feel like we're all little pieces of the puzzle of something greater,
Yeah.
and the connection. So if the way that I look at fitting in is just fitting in with the pieces of everyone else all together.
Yeah. I love that you bring the mosaic up because in my own sort of thought process and heart, the image of a mosaic is each piece is itself. Each piece is different
Yes.
than every other piece. That's what makes the mosaic beautiful.
Right.
But it doesn't prevent us from coming together to create something even more beautiful. And so,
Absolutely.
even though we're all different within the mosaic of one thing, we create one thing that is the artistry of our differences, which is
Yeah.
why people like to look at it.
Yes, we come together as our own individual self to make a whole beautiful picture.
Yes, I have a thought process that I would like to bring peace, PEACE, by having the pieces, PIECE, come together and feel peace, PEACE.
Yes.
So, right? So when
Brilliant.
each of the pieces feel peace, the entirety will feel peace. Um,
Yes.
what are you most scared of?
Mm, I try not to be afraid because I feel like, again, it goes back to God, I believe. I feel like, you just, the only way to conquer fear is to walk through it. So if something comes up and I feel afraid, I look at it as an opportunity.
I love that. Wow. You're a courageous woman.
Oh, thank you.
I love that. What are you most excited about?
Spreading joy, light, what's to come. The best is yet to come. I'm excited that what is going to come of this time that we're in, that it can't, this is the darkness, but the light's to come. And I hopefully you and I and the mosaic, we can spread the light.
Again, listeners, listen. So many people look at this time and feel like we are losing our societies. Some people think that, look, will we ever recover from this period of time? But look at the way Lynn looks at this time that we're going through, that this is just, and it's similar to the way I look at surprise, surprise, because, here's someone I don't know who I feel like I know intimately. Um, when you remodel a house, There's a time where the house looks like hell. It doesn't look good. I mean, you have to rip it all apart. It looks crazy inside. But you have to do that. You have to take out the things that no longer belong in the house to remodel the house and make the house fit the new situation that you want to be in. I often think that's what's happening in the world today.
Yes.
And once we get through the remodel, we will have the house that we look forward to living in. So I love that you see it that way as well. What do you hope most will change in the world?
Acceptance.
I love that. You're good at lightning round. I always want to go more, but you're good. You, you can. Um, do you speak more or listen more?
I think I listen more. I listen to understand, not to respond.
I love that. How did you learn to do that?
Maybe feeling like I wasn't heard.
Well,
So knowing the importance of being listened to and understood. I try to teach my husband this. He's been doing really well. He's a physician, and I always tell him, because I know what it's like to be a patient. So I tell him, when you go in with your patient, listen to understand, not to
yeah,
respond.
yeah. And that can be hard because sometimes they have just a limited amount of time to get
Yes,
through a limited amount, right? They're listening to figure out how do we move people through. Not that he does that, but so many physicians have to do that to keep up the pace of what's going
right.
on.
And I feel like I've accomplished it, because that's one of the compliments that he gets is he listens. I finally found someone that really listens. And he always says, I have, thank my wife.
I love that. I love that. Do you operate more from your head or from your heart?
Heart, 100.
Yeah. And you can feel it. Like I asked the question, Joe, just so I don't assume, but you can feel it when someone is in their heart. The way they live life is different than when someone's in
Yes.
their head. And I love that about you. Do you believe people are more similar than they are different, or more different than they are similar?
I think more similar, but they're just not aware of it.
I see. So that sort of answered my second question, which is why do you think we look so much for differences when we're actually so similar to each other? We spend a lot of time in the world today pointing out the differences of people, right?
Right,
Whether it's their skin color, their economics, their border,
right.
their political party, whatever it is. Why do you think we highlight differences so much rather than the things that bind us together?
And maybe it's fear, but I feel like it all comes down to it. We all just want to be loved
Yeah,
and
yeah.
accepted.
So, in wanting to be loved and accepted, why would we highlight what's different from you and me? Is that a way that we feel loved?
I don't think so. What I think some people believe is if they belong to that group, they are loved and accepted in that group.
I
And they
see.
just haven't reached the level of, but we can all be one group.
Right, right, right. It seems like we have siloed ourselves into silos of like-minded people, and I remember when I originally years and years and years ago found my like-minded community. I couldn't believe that there were other people as crazy as I was who believed like I was. I mean,
Yes.
look, even in our conversation together, we just have there's something that we feel for each other
Right.
because we think the same way. So there's
Yes.
some comfort in that like-mindedness that to this day I still feel, right? Because
Yes.
I love meeting you now because I feel akin to you and I feel the
Yes.
energy, the similar energy. And yet more and more what I'm realizing is I look around the world that I live in, those like-minded communities which were once our beauty are now becoming our destruction.
Yes.
Our silos of like-mindedness are becoming wider and deep and stronger, and the spaces between our silo and the other silos are becoming bigger and deeper.
Right.
And it feels like everything has its time. Ecclesiastic says everything, there's a moment for every reason under heaven, right?
Yes,
It feels like it's time for unlike minds to come together now, not just like minds.
absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
How would you do that if you had a magic wand right now? What would be the first thing you would do?
Wave my magic wand to have everyone have the ability to see that we are all together, one being, love, and celebrate our uniqueness.
And so I want you to imagine yourself in the world that exists out here today, right now, that is, at each other's throats, almost in a civil war of ideological belief systems. And you may have a powerful magic wand that one wave of your wand could do that. But
Yes.
what what would be the first thing practically you might do to say to people who are at each other's throats? Take a minute here. What would
I
you
well,
do?
I feel like I try to do this. I try to enlighten people to show different perspectives. So each person I meet, I look at it as an opportunity to be a student and a teacher. And I feel like if I can help that one person see that we can look out the same window and see different things, but we're both looking out the same window.
Yeah,
And
love
then
that.
if they get that, if they can receive, if they're ready to receive that message, then they can share that message with their neighbor.
So you said you're a student and a teacher. I heard you talk about how you would teach because you're looking out the same window. How
Yeah.
would you be a student in that case?
Well, because everybody, I want to know what do you see when you look out the window?
Got you. Beautiful. Beautiful. So often I think that we have lost trust in each other, and that trust is a one of the most important qualities that we can have. Where are you on the scale of trust, with one being I suck at it and 10 being I'm incredible at it? Where are you on that scale of
I'm
trust?
saying I'm a 10, and I wasn't always a 10 because trust
Ah,
was a really difficult thing for me. And again, with that forgiveness, I think the trust came. I trust and accept that each individual is going to be who they can be, the best that they can be in that moment, what they're capable of. I trust that.
so I hear people thinking, okay, just because I know my listeners a little bit.
Yes.
Um, what about when someone hurts you? How do you trust them again? Because we all trust each other until we get hurt. And then we say, well, I trust everybody, but then they have to earn my trust. But how does someone who's a 10 in trust continue to trust somebody after they've been hurt by them?
Well, I think it's a matter of accepting who that person is. I believe that we do the best. I believe that we do the best we can in the moment that we're in. And sometimes it's not our best self. So here's where forgiveness comes back in. Okay,
I love it.
so you hurt me, but let's move forward.
And you're able to do that.
I am now.
I love that. If you think about it, listeners, think about it, feel what Lynn's saying, because so many of you say, when I answer that question, when I ask you that question, so many of you said, well, I'm not so good at trust anymore. I used to be good at trust, but then I got hurt a lot. What Lynn is bringing in is this component of forgiveness. And are you able to forgive? And when you can forgive, it's as if you you let go of that. You say that people are doing the best that they can do. If they knew better, they would do better. And so you continue to trust them. And in the very act of continuing to trust somebody, people start to be trustworthy.
Yes.
But when we lose that trust and we say, oh, I can't trust you, then people fulfill that part of that equation as well. So
Yes.
there is so much in what Lynn is saying, and I hope you will listen to this again and again and again, because she says it in a very sort of lightning round way, which is very short and very easy and very. It's so natural to her that there's not a lot of discussion around it. But I want you to create your own discussion around it. I want
I
you to
say
see.
forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, and it takes more energy to be hurt and angry than it does to let go and forgive.
Yeah. One of the things I see when I look out into the world that I look out into is there aren't a lot of people that know themselves very well. And if we don't know ourselves very well, we can't even give ourselves gifts because we don't even know who we're giving ourselves, who that ourselves is we're giving ourselves to. And so many people are caught in this world around them that they get hurt by the things that happen out there, but they're not living in this internal world
Right.
as well, or they're not centered in who they are. It's not so much it's a different world, but they're just centered. It's like being at the hub of the wheel rather than at the perimeter of the wheel.
Yes.
How would you recommend people get to the hub of the wheel?
Look inside. Happiness is a choice, not a destination. And look for opportunities where you can learn and grow. I look to me, everything is an opportunity to learn and grow. And anything that sort of challenges us is a perfect, even more opportunity. Say, all right, why is this bothering me? What do I have to learn about myself? What do I have to work on, so that this does, to get to the point where I'm not going to let something like this bother me.
I love that. I remember when I was in the monastery, I was in a monk for 10 years in a monastery.
Yes.
And someone came into the monastery who everybody in the monastery, all of us, we got along. As the guys, we were like a family of brothers, and we just got along so well, even though we were often very quiet with each other.
Right.
You could just feel the collective,
Yes.
love we had for each other. And a new brother came into the monastery, and I think every single one of us, he got under our skin. And we went, after a few months, we went to the head of the monastery and we said, sir, we have to just ask you something, like, what is going on here? We have this guy, and I think every single one of us feels the same way. Like, why would you have let him in here? Like, he just seems to create havoc and pain, and all of us, he irks us.
Yes.
And the teacher said to us, that's so beautiful, because if he weren't here, I would have had to go out and hire somebody to be him.
Yeah.
Because he's teaching you more than I am right now.
Right.
Take a look at what he's doing. Take a look at what you're doing. Take a look at who you are. And how is it possible that someone's actions can make you feel differently if you are yourself?
Right.
So I love that you just gave the lesson of the monastery without having gone into the monastery.
Yes.
I love that. Would you say you're a leader or a follower?
Maybe a little bit of both. I lead when I have to, but I also follow when I need to.
I love that. What's leadership mean to you?
Guiding, walking with, together, giving people the tools they need so that they can lead themselves and others.
I love that. When we look at leadership in America now, and it could be in any place, but let's just go with low-hanging fruit because it's just so easy. And I don't mean this to become a political conversation, because I think both sides are.
Yes.
What I'm saying is going to be true about both sides.
Yes.
It feels like we elect leaders to lead our country, and when they get elected, they enter silos where they become followers, not leaders.
Yep.
I
agree.
And it seems like we need them to lead within those silos rather than follow within those silos. Like, for people that are pro-Trump, he's done some amazingly good things and he's done some terrible things.
Right.
But nobody stands up to say to him, these are terrible things. Or not nobody, but very few people do, right? Yes. And in the Democratic side, it's like the guy hasn't done anything. He turns a corner, and everybody has a bat that they want to slug his head off with, right?
Yes.
And so, but he has done some good things, but nobody can stand up and say, hey, these are things that you've done really well, but
Right.
like this stuff is like irrepressible. I mean, you can't do this stuff.
Right.
Why do you think that we don't have the courage to lead within the silos that we're in, to stand up to the silo of what of the camp that we're in, because we all go into our silos, or so many of us do? Why do you think we lose our ability to lead within the silo?
I
And
think again, fear.
wouldn't real leadership be leading within those silos?
Right. I think it's fear. They want to be accepted. And there's something about being in their silo, their group, that makes them feel accepted. So it makes them feel powerful. When I feel like almost they have to go step outside of it, get to that next level to realize that there's so much more that they could be doing and sharing and creating. They're not in a creative mindset,
Yeah, yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. And it seems like it's going to take something like that to unify a country that is not unified, because as long as we stay siloed and not seeing anything wrong with our silo and just falling in allegiance with what the leaders of that silo want to say,
Yes.
what do we do?
It saddens me a little bit to see, because I'm hopeful, but I feel like it's going to take a little bit longer. I'm just waiting for that one person to step out of the silo, and I'm saying they're out there.
Yeah.
Where are
Yeah.
they?
Yeah. You may be that person, but who knows? Let's see. I love your ability to listen, and how important listening is to you. Will you tell people that are listening what's the best quality? What's the best thing that's happened to you? What's the best realization you've had? What's the greatest gift you've been given by being someone who can listen?
The greatest gift that I've been given by someone that listens is being able to allow people to be their true, authentic self without judgment, and helping them open up to see more possibility and opportunity, and bringing light. I go back to my light, because I feel
Yeah.
like that's my purpose.
Yeah. Do you believe that you're a giver or a receiver?
Both.
So I love that, because so often when I talk to people, people say that they're givers. And so often what I find is givers have a hard time receiving.
Yes, that used to be me.
What changed for you? How did you allow yourself to also be able to receive as a giver?
When I realized, and I'm not sure it was one particular day so much, but I realized that I'm worthy of receiving just as much as I'm worthy of giving.
Yeah. What changed for you to be able to see that? Because there's so many people that I think don't feel worthy of receiving.
Right. And I just feel like the way that I sometimes describe it to clients is, it's the get, like, so how would you treat your best friend? Or what would, if your best friend came to you with this situation, how would you handle it? What would you say? What advice would you give? And then I say, okay, now you're your own best friend. Give that gift to you.
Love it. When you say you talk to clients, tell me what do you do with clients? What is your workplace? How do you show up in the world?
Well, I'm a most recently women's empowerment coach. Before the pandemic, my colleague and I were doing women's empowerment group course at the local college. I have personal clients. I coach anybody and everybody. I have, veterans that are clients, again, grief clients, my purpose, I believe, is to help people live the life that they're meant to live. And so all my clients are referral based. I don't have
Yeah.
a website per se. I do social media, but the people that come to me are the ones that are meant to be with me.
So I think from this call, you're going to get a lot of, from this conversation, you're going to get a lot of interest, and I'm going to recommend that people who have heard this conversation, get in touch with you. How? And we're going to list. You're going to send me your headshot and all your social media links. But what's the best way to reach you? What would be the thing that you check the most?
The thing I check the most would be Instagram and Facebook.
Okay. So, folks, if you want to get in touch with Lynn, Instagram her, Facebook her, message her, you do it. And I can't recommend more to you than someone who has gone through some of this stuff, because I talk to a lot of people and I have hundreds and hundreds of conversations. And I can't tell if I just feel so close to her because she is mirroring back to me many of the things that I believe, or if it's just that I'm enamored by the fact that somebody feels this clean in their desire to want to give and to help and to listen and to be with people. But it's really been an honor and a privilege to get to know you. I'm so happy we're having this conversation.
I just have to say that when I was thinking about if you asked me before the call, who am I? The answer that came to my head was, I am your mirror.
Oh, wow. I love that.
And I just think, wow, the fact that you
Wow.
just said that.
Yeah, but I feel that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so interesting to meet somebody that I've never met before who feels so similar. And I can wholeheartedly recommend that somebody work with you,
Oh, well,
because
thank you.
I just love the way you show up in the world. And I can't tell if that's just a narcissistic, because I'm right, or whatever, but I just love the way you show up in the world. And what an honor for you to say that about me. I so appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm so grateful that we finally got to speak with one another, because I've always, like I said, I've always felt a connection, even though we've never met and we were complete strangers.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Lynn, if you've said so much already, but if you had 2 minutes to talk to people right now who are listening to you, what would you say to them?
Love yourself, love one another, look at each opportunity as a lesson or a blessing. Everything that we're going through is an opportunity to learn, do better, grow, and be the light.
Love it. Didn't even take 2 minutes. I absolutely love that. I want to thank you so much for being here today with me.
Thank you.
And I really feel like a piece of my mosaic is back in place that I didn't really see before. Not that I didn't see it, I knew it was there, but it's like now it's become neon lit up,
Yes,
just
I love that.
I love that piece is so vibrant and alive. And what a beautiful honor. Thank you so much for being here and
Thank
sharing it
you
with
very
us.
much. I appreciate it, and I'm grateful.
And for those of you who are listening, thank you so much again for listening to this show. Um, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to get in contact with Lynn. We're going to have all of her information in the show notes. Reach out to her, see if there's something she has that could benefit you. See if just her ability to listen to you would help you to open up and trust a little more. See if the beautiful power of forgiveness is something that can transmit from your conversation one to the other. And see if you don't feel lighter. I know as a result of this conversation, I feel lighter and better and just happy that there's another human being out there like this in the world, doing the work
Same.
that you're doing. I just thank you. I just feel so pleased that the world is full of people like this that I didn't even know were there. Um, I want to invite all of you listening to take the challenge that I give at the end of every show, which is go up to somebody you don't know and just spend a few minutes and ask them how they're doing.
Yes.
You don't
How
need to
they're
fix
really
them.
doing.
How they're really doing. You don't need to fix them. You don't need to change them. You don't need to help them. You don't need to uplift them. You don't need to convert them. You don't need to do any of that. Just simply sit with them and care enough to listen to how they are and what they're feeling.
Yes.
And when you can do that, just allow them that opportunity to just tell you. What I found in this room is strangers have walked into the room and friends have walked out of the room.
Yes.
And when you live in a world where the people are strangers, you live in a strange world. But when we live in a world where people are friends, we live in a friendly world.
Yes.
And what I'm finding is more and more and more, wouldn't it be beautiful to help to create a friendlier world in this time especially?
Oh, absolutely.
So please take me up on my challenge. Please also contact Lynn. Lynn, before we leave, is there one last thing you want to say?
Just thank you.
It's my honor. Thank you so much. And I hope this won't be the end of our conversations, but the beginning.
It won't be, I'm sure of it.
Okay, I look forward to that.
Thank you.
All right, strangers out there, don't be strangers until the next stranger comes into the room. Love one another, be kind to one another, help one another, forgive one another. Big, big blessing that we got from today. Listen to each other, and who knows, maybe the stranger that you meet will become your friend. And maybe in listening to two strangers talk today, you'll find someone who you feel drawn to become friends with as well.
Yes.
Take that opportunity. Until the next stranger comes into the room, I want to thank you for being here and live happy, live peaceful, live connected. Ciao.